What a week in New York sports. We are now in week 2 of the NFL season with the Jets and Giants both back in action on Sunday. Baseball season, it's winding down, and the WNBA playoffs, they are underway. So much to talk about today, and we are going to do it with a voice that you hear and a face that you've seen a lot, who's connected to the New York Post. He is a co-host of multiple podcasts, including The Gang's All Here, Up in the Blue Seats, and the Amazing But True podcast. He is known as the Podfather. It's my guy, Jake Brown. Jake, what's going on, man?
It's good to be here in the palatial SNY New York Post studio.
Palatial?
It's a SAT word. My mom would be proud.
Strong SAT word.
It's a beautiful studio. I'm glad to be down here in downtown Manhattan, the greatest city in the world, and good to see you. You're looking fly. I'm looking fly. We're all fly.
Hey, man, you got the sharp blazer on. You know, I always try to make sure I have a sharp blazer on as well, too, so I like that. Welcome to the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. Glad to have you here, my friend. A lot to get into this week, guys, including the Giants looking to bounce back after, what was a disastrous week 1. The Mets finally hiring David Stearns. Been a long time coming. But first, we're going to start with the New York Jets, Jake. Monday night against the Bills. Things ended well, Jake, with a win for the Jets, but for some Jets fans, probably felt like a loss. Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles, out for the year. Zach Wilson, the former number 2 overall pick, he takes over as QB1. So, Jake, I got to ask you this question off the top. Can the Jets still win without Aaron Rodgers? Can they still be a winning team without Aaron Rodgers under center?
Well, you want to talk about going from 100 to 0 real quick. 4 minutes into the game, Aaron Rodgers' season is over. 4 snaps, didn't have a completion. It went from fireworks to deafening silence at MetLife Stadium. And it was crazy to be there for that atmosphere. But they can, because this is an elite defense, Dexter. They have all the targets in the world. They got 2 running backs in Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. And I'll tell you, their offensive line is better than people think. I think on paper it is better. And once they develop some cohesion, they will be just fine. But when you have Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook back there, when you have all the pass rushers in the world where they have too many, where Carl Lawson almost doesn't have a role right now because everyone else took his job. You talk about Jermaine Johnson, Bryce Hall, all these guys they got defensive line where McDonald could barely even play because they have so many. They could get after the quarterback. They could intercept the quarterback, as Jordan Whitehead did 3 times in week 1. You have Sauce Gardner. You have DJ Reed. There's no reason they can't win without him. Now, Zach's just got to play mistake-free. When he did that last year, they won football games. They found ways to beat the Steelers. They found ways to win 4 games. Breece was explosive. And if Breece could stay on the field, if the defense could turn the other team over, the special teams could break out a play like Xavier Gipson did on Monday night, why can't the Jets still make the playoffs? Zach's got to grow up. We got to see what Aaron Rodgers did to him. Did that tutelage work, Dexter? Did him on the sidelines, him saying, throw to Malik on Hard Knocks that we saw, is that all going to come together and we'll see it on the field? Well, we'll find out.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because once you brought up all the stuff about the defense and all the stuff you said, I was like, all right, Jake, you got to get to Zach. We got to talk about Zach. You're saying that he has to grow up. Do you believe that he will? That'll lead me to my next question, but do you believe that he will grow up? Are you believing in the Zach Wilson experience?
I think he'll be better, but I think it's a little bit crazy for Jets fans to all of a sudden think he's the guy now and he's going to be great. Like, how does Zach Wilson immediately turn into a Pro Bowler? I mean, that's fascinating to me, how people want to twist themselves into a pretzel and be like, Zach Wilson is the guy. What makes you? What have you seen that makes you see that? Makes you show that? Like, I need to see it from him. I need to see him not try and be a hero and throw the ball down the field. And Dexter, I got to see him run the football. He is so mobile and still never decides to run the ball. He had 102 rushing yards all year last year. He's got to be able to be a mobile quarterback because he's very good when he's like the trickery and he gets out of the pocket. He finds ways to make magical plays here and there. But I got to see him run forward and not just side and backwards. He's got to have the ability to run forward. So, you know, I'm not sold on him yet. I need to see it. I don't think he's going to beat the Cowboys. I think that defense is just too good. But go out and beat the Patriots. Show him you're not seeing ghost anymore. We've seen him against the Patriots and how bad he's been. I've seen it in person live last year. So go out and beat the Patriots next week. You're 2-1. And then I think Jets fans will be fine. But this schedule is daunting here, going up into the bye and going up to that trade deadline on Halloween.
It is a tough schedule for the Jets. Okay, so you're not a believer, and there's other Jets fans who are not on the train for the Zach Wilson experience, right? Do you think the Jets will and or should they trade for another QB to lead this team because of what you said with the defense, because of the championship aspirations by some that was out there. Because there were expectations on this team with Aaron Rodgers, do you think they should go out and get another quarterback?
I think they have to. I think there would be a big mistake if you go Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. I mean, how are you going to sell that to the fan base? How are you going to sell that to the roster? Tim Boyle has done nothing in his career. Zach Wilson has done nothing in his career. You have until week 8. You have 7 games in. The trade deadline's the 31st. You got to go out there and try to get a Jacoby Brissett if he's available. You got to go out there and get a Jameis Winston if you can pull that off. You got to go out there and get a Cooper Rush. I mean, the Cowboys got Trey Lance. What do they need Cooper Rush for? He's a veteran who's stepped in and won some games. I think he would be fine. But Zach is going to get until that trade deadline, until that bye the week before the trade deadline to get the job done. But if he struggles and the Jets aren't winning games, you got to flip the script and get to another quarterback. The problem is, and my co-host Brian Costello on Gangs on the Hill will say it takes time to learn the offense. This is a unique playbook with Hackett. It's tough to learn it overnight. These are NFL players. I'm sorry. You got to be able to learn it and learn it quick and get to work. I don't want to hear it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks, a whole training camp, to learn a playbook. Study that playbook, get in there, and step in as quarterback. You're making millions of dollars in the NFL. You should be able to learn a damn playbook. So as extensive as it may be, I'd like to see them trade, because the free agent guys, I mean, come on. I don't know if Carson Wentz is the guy. You get a Matt Ryan out of the broadcast booth. I don't know about that. So I think trading for a Brissett or a Cooper Rush, those are probably, and Jameis Winston, those are the 3 names I have targeted. What it'll take, 4th, 5th round pick, you got to give up a pick. I mean, big deal, big whoop. You get the first now that Rodgers didn't play. That turns into a second, so you have your first now. You're not going to trade that, but I think you got to go get someone.
All right, I think the Jets have to go get someone, but this week they are playing the Cowboys. Got to ask you this. You said you think the Jets O-line is better than some people might think. The Cowboys defense, they looked really good against the Giants, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Are you concerned about the Jets O-line against this Cowboys defense coming up on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the whole Jets offense. Another thing with Zach Wilson, he has terrible chemistry with Garrett Wilson, and we were kind of robbed here of a great year from Garrett Wilson. This offense is going to have a lot of problems against that defense. Zach's going to have to get rid of the ball quick. I said on the podcast, get the ball to McCole Hardman. Get it to your gadget guy. Run a reverse. Run a screen. Get quick routes. Get it out of his hands and see what your playmakers can do. Get a little curl route to Garrett and see it. Watch what he does. Watch him work. He was the offensive rookie of the year last year. We need to see what he's got this year with Zach. And they have the run game that has to dominate. The offensive line did a good job of creating holes for the run game. It only takes one Brees explosion for a touchdown. Like you saw it last week, he came very close with the 80-plus yard run. So if they could get a few explosive runs from Brees, if you could get a couple of screens out there to Dalvin Cook, to Brees, to Michael Carter, that's how you're going to have to try and win this football game. It's not going to be Hail Marys down the field. It's not going to be play actions. You're going to have to run, and you're going to have to get yards after catch. It's about racking and yakking for the New York Jets. I just made that up in the moment, and it sounded good, racking and yakking. So we'll see if they can do it. I'm not confident. I think Zach's going to get sacked 5 or 6 times. But again, get creative, use your gadget guy, and run the football.
All right, we will see what happens with the Jets in week 2. They had a good week 1. From a winning perspective, in terms of losing Aaron Rodgers, not good. All right, speaking of the Cowboys, they destroyed the Giants 40-zip in week 2. Not a good day at all for Big Blue in their season and home opener. Jake, are the G-Men as bad as they looked in week 1 against Dallas, or is week 1 a very good liar? Because that's something I like to say. Week 1 can lie to us all. It can have us believe in things that are not. What do you think in that situation? Are they as bad as they looked, or did week 1 not tell us everything that we need to know about Big Blue?
The Giants are better than this. They're a better team than this. They're not a team that's going to get smacked around like that every week. But everyone wanted to talk about the Jets' offensive line and how atrocious it was. The Giants' O-line is abysmal. I mean, they have question marks across the entire O-line. Andrew Thomas, not a question mark, but now he's hurt. Glowinski, question mark. John Michael Schmitz, we had him on the Blue Rush podcast. Great kid, rookie. But he's a rookie. He's a question mark. Right guard, question mark. Right tackle, Evan Neal, huge question mark, who you're kind of stuck with now for a couple more years. In his second year, has shown zero improvement. Evan Neal's a big problem. But Ben Bredesen, like Joshua Zudu, you relied on these guys that have no proven track record to block for a quarterback who's known for using his legs, who can get the ball down the field when he has time. But a guy who's going to get smacked around like he did against Dallas, I mean, he took a lot of hard hits and played deep into that game. And I think that was a terrible move. I know you're saying, all right, let's get some, motivation going into week 2. Let's see if he could score a touchdown. He should have not been in that game. You're risking injury. And then you go to Tyrod Taylor. Like, you don't want that in week 1. So I think this O-line is a disaster. I think the run game is good and they have receivers. But if they have no time, I mean, he had under 2 seconds to throw the football. If you have no time, you're screwed. That's it. Like, Daniel Jones needs more time to operate because everyone wants to doubt the contract that he gets. That's the value of a starting quarterback now, a franchise quarterback. Did he get overpaid? I'm sure he did. But after one game, you already have people saying, you gave $40 million a year to this guy. I don't think it's all on him. I think he was terrible, but I think the O-line was worse. So let's see if they change up the playbook, get the ball out quicker. And I also think not having, you want to talk about gadget guys like McCole Hardman, Wan'Dale Robinson being out, I think has been awful for this Giants offense because he was your gadget guy. He was your guy who could run a reverse, you could get the ball too quick, yards after catch, screens, reverses, all different things, all different trickery. That was your guy, and him not there hurts this offense. So I think they'll be better, but that O-line, they're going to have to make a trade. They're going to have to get bodies, and if Evan Neal doesn't figure it out, I don't know what you do. You just get rid of him? He's got 2 years left in his contract. What do? You just wasted a draft pick.
So you have a lot of concerns about the offensive line, but this week, in week 2, the Giants, they're going to have a short memory here, Jake. They're going to have to put that 40-0 beatdown behind them. They head to the desert to battle the Cardinals in week 2. So I got to ask you this. Do you expect Big Blue to bounce back in a major way this week? Brian Daboll, coach team, does he have his guys ready to bounce back in week 2?
It'd be embarrassing if they don't. I mean, the Cardinals are a team that is very much tanking. I mean, Josh Dobbs is the quarterback. If you cannot beat Josh Dobbs, I hate to be dramatic. The season is over. This isn't a must-win game for the Giants, but it is a game they have to win. So it's not must-win, but they kind of have to win. It's not a must-win, it's a have-to-win. I'll word it that way. 0-2, Lawrence Tynes has said it on Blue Rush. He said, we were 0-2 and we won the Super Bowl. Well, this isn't your mom and pop's New York Giants. This isn't Tom Coughlin's Giants. This isn't Eli Manning's Giants. So it's a different team. And I think if they're 0-2, they might be doomed. You got to go to beat the Cardinals, and I think they will, Dexter. I think they're going to, what was good about the Giants last year is coaching. They were very well coached, and their coaching propelled them to wins they probably shouldn't have had. Look what they did to open the year last year against the Titans. Brian Daboll's going for a 2 in that spot. Just a remarkable coaching decision. Well, we got to see what this coaching staff is made up in year 2 here. You got to make adjustments. You got to go to Arizona, win, and I think they will. And I think Isaiah Simmons, having him there, knowing what's going on their side of things, is going to help. It's kind of like a little cheat code. It's like, all right, I know what he's running here. I know this defensive play. I know this offensive play. And I hope Isaiah Simmons could be kind of a cheater for the Giants and help them win this football game because they need it. And their schedule, you want to talk about the Jets schedule. Giants schedule is very tough, too.
It is.
They got a daunting schedule ahead of them. So, I mean, they're not going to beat the 49ers the next week on a Thursday night. So if you lose this one and then go to play the 49ers, we could kiss the season goodbye.
Oh, saying it's over already. It's too early to be saying that, Jake.
I'm sorry. You cannot lose to Josh Dobbs, period.
That's the statement there on the Giants. We will see if they're victorious against Josh Dobbs and the Cardinals in week 2. Okay, Jake, last thing for me here. This has been a long time coming. And you as the host of the Amazing But True, the great Mets podcast that it is, long time coming for the New York Mets. They reportedly finally get their guy to run the front office. David Stearns, he's going to take over in October. Now, Mets fans, from what I've seen, they mostly seem to like this hire, Jake. So I got to ask you this. How soon do you think Stearns can have the Mets back in contention? And by contention, I mean not for the playoffs, for a World Series title. How soon can he get him back to that level?
Well, first off, David Stearns had to have been hired. Like, if there was no plan B, really, we don't know who the plan B was. He's the smartest guy in any room he walks in. I mean, this guy was in the Mets front office. He was an intern. He came here. He's from New York. He grew up a Mets fan. So now you get the combination of Cohen and Stearns, 2 Mets fans running the show, and leave the decisions to him, not Billy Epler. Stearns needs to make every final baseball decision. It goes through him, and everyone raves about him. The fact that he was 30 years old and a GM in Major League Baseball and took a mid-market team like the Milwaukee Brewers every year to the playoffs and winning a few divisions, and that's pretty impressive. Now he's got every dollar in town here in Queens. So there's no excuse now for David Stearns. It's time. Now next year, probably not. Next year they'll probably maybe contend for a wild card spot. And then, at this rate in baseball, you get in, you never know. Look what the Phillies did last year. So just get in and see. But I'm going to say 2025, Dexter, is kind of the year you're looking at for the Mets to be a World Series contender. But there's no reason why they don't make the playoffs next year. Listen, you have all this young talent. For now, you have Pete Alonso. You have the money. You have Edwin Diaz coming back. You have the right guy to make the calls. And now it's time. Let's see what he's got. You got to go get pitchers. Is it Yamamoto? Is it Ohtani? You got to fill this rotation. You got to get guys leading up to Edwin Diaz. He can't do it all himself. You saw this year how bad the middle relief was. Once Diaz went down, everyone's role changed, and it was a train wreck for that bullpen. So fix the bullpen, fix the rotation, and then you got to trust some young guys. You got to trust Mauricio maybe. You're definitely trusting Alvarez, maybe a Beatty. You got to hope they improve and have big second years, but I very much trust David Stearns to make any baseball decision because he's got as strong of a track record as anyone.
All right, so you got the trust in David Stearns there. You talked about 2025. You see that as the year where the Mets could be back in championship contention. But let's look to 2024, right? You want to, as you were saying, get back to that playoff contention next year. What changes/additions do you think the Mets must make before the start of the 2024 season?
You got to fix the rotation. You decided to trade Scherzer, which looks like a brilliant move. I'll give that to Billy Epler. That decision was a home run at this point. You have two starters. You have Senga, who's absolutely incredible, just a remarkable signing. Same agent, Japanese pitcher, Yamamoto, Ohtani. Get one of the two. Now, Ohtani, we'll see if he'll pitch next year. But one of those two guys, I think, I'll say it right here, will be a lock to be a New York Met, I think, next year. So that's three guys. You got Quintana, that's three. You got to go out and get two more starters, whether that's a Kershaw, if he becomes, if the Dodgers don't end up bringing him back, one of those other middle-tier free agents. You got to go get two more starting pitchers on top of one of those guys, fix the bullpen. And listen, I am not ready to give the job to Brett Beatty every day at third base. I'm sorry. He has not shown me enough to make him a 150-game third baseman. I think Ronnie Mauricio is going to fight for a spot. That might leave you to trade Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil could be a trade piece. We'll see about Pete Alonso. I think you listen to offers and see if you get a haul. If not, he's your first baseman. And then Starling Marte. Here's a guy who was a major part of the Mets winning 101 games. And the injuries this year, he just was not the same player. He was an integral piece. He needs to come back and be an important piece in right field. I don't want to hear about trading him. I think he has no value right now. He's got to come back and be that guy. And you need guys to have bounce-back years. You need Alvarez to show the power that he showed over the summer before he had, a bit of a dry spell and show he could hit 25, 30 homers. He's your catcher of the future. And I think Ronnie Mauricio could be your second baseman of the future. And maybe you move McNeil to left, whatever that may be. But you might see at some point next year Luis Angel Acuna. You might see, a Clifford, one of these guys, one of these prospects that they got, you might see later in the year. But I think the Mets have to get a few trusted bats, and they need to fill the DH role. I think J.D. Martinez could be that guy. You need to get an actual bat, enough Vogelback, enough of these terrible DH options they've been putting out there. I mean, I've lost my mind with how bad, no more Danny Mendick of the world, Jonathan Arauz, Rafael Ortega, great stories, but they're bench players and 4A players. The Mets have to create depth across the board from AAA and up. They have to have depth pieces they can plug and play, and that's what they didn't have this year. So a lot of holes to fill, but I think Stearns is going to get the job done.
All right, you're confident Stearns is going to get the job done. This is a man who's very confident in his podcasting, just to let you guys know. Gang's All Here podcast, Big Blue Rush, amazing but true podcast. Up in the blue seats. Almost forgot about that as well, too.
Busy man, yeah. A lot of New York sports going on.
A lot of New York sports, which is why we had to have you on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown.
Yeah, I'm sorry for gaining the City 15. I call it the City Field 15. It's the new freshman 15. Like, I got a Hofstra University when I might have gained 15 pounds, but I eat a lot of food at City Field, a lot of good food. And if I'm a little thick in this suit right now, it's because the City 15.
Well, I'll say this for the people who know. Jake and I, we hang out sometimes. We're at the City Field at the Mets games. Jake has always put me on to the new food at City Field. If somebody's going to know where the new food is, it is Jake.
Voted #1 in Major League Baseball, by the way, and for good reason. So shout out to all the people, the chefs, all the people who make the good food at City Field.
All the people who make the good food. And shout out to people who make the good podcasts, like the Podfather right here, Jake Brown. Catch him on all the New York Post podcasts that he does for the New York Post sports team as well. Jake, appreciate you coming on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. We have to do this again.
Great to be in here. I could change out of my suit, but it's fall now, so it's like suit weather. It's good for us big guys right now. So it's good to. I haven't been down here in like 4 or 5 years. I interned here, wrote here, worked here, so it's good to be back.
Good to have you back, my man. That's Jake Brown. I'm Dexter Henry. Till next time, next week, another edition of the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. We'll see you then. Peace.